Welcome to Sports Tech HQ, a show where we explore the cutting edge of technology that is transforming the world of sports. I'm Jeff Hintz, and today I'm joined by Rory Billing, CEO and founder of The Fans Place, a platform that is helping businesses to engage their customers using fantasy sports style contests. Rory, thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome. I can't wait to hear more about The Fans Place. So let's start with your vision of The Fans Place. It's really focused on removing the house. When I think about house, I think of like gaming.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of what you do for the businesses as well as the customer?
Of course, yeah. So just like you said, removing the house, I honestly kind of think of the Fans Place as the non-alcoholic beer of sports betting. So when you think about sports betting, obviously you're putting money down, you're hoping to win more money potentially than you put down, you're gambling. With the Fans Place, instead of that, all of our users in our mobile app play for free. So they might predict things like who's going to win a game, the Reds or the Cubs tonight. Is this player going to hit a home run, yes or no? They compete against other players in the app in these contests, and then based on how they do, they earn credit. So again, playing for free all the time. The credit's only worth money if they then go to one of the businesses that we partner with. They spend dollars there, they snap a picture of their receipt, and then we essentially give them the cash value of the credit that they turned in by taking a picture of that receipt. So that's how we essentially use the free fantasy sports contest to then drive business, to our local business partners.
Okay, great. So it's free really for both. The benefit for the establishments are that they're driving more business.
Correct.
More frequent business.
Correct.
By that individual because of maybe their like there might be a close pub or whatever to the house.
Yeah, so if you think about it, when you earn credit, maybe you find us. Sometimes we partner with these businesses to co-promote. So maybe you find us there, you download the app, and it brings you back in to spend that credit. Or maybe you find us via other marketing that we do. Mm-hmm. You play for a little while, you earn $5 or $10. You pop in the app, you look at the map, and you realize, oh, I live really close to Union Jack Pub in Broad Ripple. I'm going to hop into Broad Ripple. I'm going to go to Union Jack, and I might try them out for the first time because I have $5 or $10 back. So you keep playing, you earn more credit, and then on top of that, we've built check-in incentives for all these places as well. So not only are you earning credit and incentivized to go in because of that, we're also layering in these incentives. You say, look, I'm at Union Jack Pub. You might double your winnings for a contest. You might get access to an exclusive contest that's check-in only. Mm-hmm. So we get you in that habit of continuing to go out to our partners, getting those check-ins, earning that credit, and it creates that cycle.
Okay, so walk me through the user experience.
Sure.
If you don't mind. I'm both kind of the user, like the end user, as well as the customer, I guess, would be the pub or the establishment, on how much control they have and the incentives that are offered. But like as a user, I just go download the app.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, the user experience is pretty simple. One of the things we found from our users is they really appreciate that once you download the app, it's pretty easy to find what you want to do. Yeah. I don't know if you've downloaded or used DraftKings or FanDuel or any of the gambling apps, but there's a whole bunch of numbers and it's all there's a lot to do, and I think it can be overwhelming. With us, our contests actually are fairly simple. They're very question answer, sort of multiple choice. Is this going to happen? Yes or no? And we don't overwhelm the user. So we're really a hyper-local experience. So if you go in there, there's, Pacers are obviously doing great right now. We have contests for every Pacers game. We run contests for every IndyCar race because IndyCar is pretty popular here in Indianapolis. And then on top of that, we have a streak that you can do every single day. Right. So you make one pick, roughly 50-50. You get up to 10 in a row, you earn 250 TFPs, which is worth roughly $25.
Okay.
You keep going, you can even earn cash on that if you kind of keep your streak going. So from a user perspective, you hop in there, you just look at the contests that are available to you, you enter as many as you want, because remember, they're all free. You hope you win credit. As you do, better and better, and you win, or even, get kind of top 20% in contests, you start realizing, all right, I've got 50 TFPs, I've got 100. Okay. Those 100 are worth $10. Then you look at the map and you figure out, all right, where can I go to turn this credit in? On the business side, it's really super, super simple. So one of the things we learned pretty early on is that local business owners are crazy busy. Oftentimes, it's just a few folks doing everything. And so, I think it's hard sometimes to rely on someone who has so much going on and so much responsibility to sort of co-promote, your app. So we've made it as easy as possible for the local business. They really don't actually have to do anything. And every month we can tell them how many people are checking in, how many dollars are being spent at that local business. And then they have the option to co-promote with us, if they so choose, if they want to, but we manage all the tech, everything on
Right,
our
right.
side.
So that would be an example, I think, what I've heard on the radio when you've maybe been on location at
Yeah.
one of the locations. So the business the problem you're solving for them, it seems like to me is that frequent flyer or that frequent customer, the rewards program
Correct.
that maybe they don't have the capacity to do. They don't have the time to do it.
Absolutely.
You're solving that problem for them.
Yeah, I think either they don't have the capacity or you see a lot of buy 10, get one free, punch cards,
Yes.
especially in the local business community.
Yeah.
Or, there are some programs out there like 5 Stars and other loyalty programs where you sort of earn points across places, but no one's really tracking them really well. You don't really know if you have points. Sometimes you get lucky and you spend money and it says, oh, you got a reward and you didn't even really realize you
Yeah,
had
I did that
reward.
today for lunch, actually.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Jimmy John's.
Yeah. But in our app,
Yeah.
we're creating this network of businesses. You're earning points that can essentially be spent anywhere, and it's an
Okay.
all boats rise with the tide
Got it.
scenario. So you look at the map. We're just trying to get you to go more often to our network than you would otherwise, and everybody essentially wins over time.
So your reward points really can be spent at any of the partnering
Absolutely.
facilities. Okay, it's not just specific to one establishment.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you talk to most local business owners, and again, we've kind of started with sports bars and restaurants. We're targeting a sports fan. They like to go to the sports bar restaurant. Most people will tell you you'd rather have 3 or 4 sports bars on one corner than one, because people can come for a variety of reasons. They get used to coming to the same place. They can go early to one spot. They can go to another spot later in the night. It's actually better to have that network to get people in as opposed to having no competition around you. Similar concept in the app. The more you can do, the more you want to play.
Right.
The more variety there is, the more incentive there is to keep playing because there's kind of more you can buy. And so it actually brings more people in the network instead of creating competition that's counterproductive.
Okay, got it. And the questions you're asking or the bets or the contests that you're creating, that's all things that you guys are pushing out, like your staff is pushing out to the system. So easy, you don't have to think too much. Pacers going to win tonight, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that's probably 75 or 80%. And then where we've had some fun is because we're free, we can do some things that it doesn't matter if 95% of people get it right. It's not as big a deal to us. It just kind of creates more credit and then people go to more businesses. So what we like to do is to, again, lean on the local. People who are actually watching IndyCar are creating these contests. So we can do really specific questions about what might have happened the day before that you're not going to see in a betting app because it's very kind of strict lines coming out of Vegas or wherever. Whereas in our app, we can write a question that hopefully people get a little bit of a laugh out of, or they just realize, okay, these are some folks who really know what's going on in our town.
So then I guess think about like social responsibility. I think about betting and kind of where that's going in the U.S. and how that's just taken off and where maybe Europe is and the U.K. is and a lot of kind of the, I guess, PR campaigns around to help people through addiction, all that. Is this kind of like a light version, you think, of betting? Is this an entry into it? Is this maybe an off-ramp from betting and give somebody an opportunity to have a contest, but maybe not necessarily bet away their house?
Sure. Yeah. I guess it could be any of those. I think of it more as an alternative. And I think the reason I love the non-alcoholic beer analogy is, non-alcoholic beer gives the opportunity to go out with your friends, have a great time, have a drink, but maybe not participate in the vice. Perhaps it's a lifestyle choice. Perhaps you had trouble with it in the past and you don't want to do that again. There are a million reasons why you might want to enjoy a zero alcohol beer. Yep. I kind of think of our app as the same thing. I mean, we have plenty of people who do gamble and also play the fans place because why not? I mean, there's no risk to you. We have a number of users who say, I don't ever want to gamble. I really enjoy your app because it gives me something fun to do. Right. We actually do really well in the older demographic because the app is really simple and easy to use. And a lot of those users don't necessarily want to ever bet. And so they see us as a really fun alternative and it's something they can actually do and talk to their kids about.
Yeah, right.
So I think maybe a little bit of all of that, but I just sort of think of it as, an alternative, another option for the user.
Okay, cool. So where did this come from? Where did the idea come from?
It's a great question.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean,
thank you.
Yeah, just like for me, I think about humans and we're always looking at our phone.
Sure.
Always.
Sure.
And, how do we get away from the device and interact with people? And it sounds like what you're doing is using the device, kind of meeting people where they are, but you're also kind of incentivizing them for gathering together.
Sure.
So where did this come from?
The initial idea came during COVID, and we're really thinking about how do people start going back to local businesses. Obviously, foot traffic was way, way down during COVID. And I think I assumed it would come back, but I wasn't sure to what extent. I don't know if anybody was really sure to what extent at that point. So I figured people were going to need to develop things that would incentivize foot traffic to bring people back, especially to local businesses like bars and restaurants.
Sure.
And so I've been a sports nut my entire life. I started my first fantasy baseball league when I was 11 years old on Yahoo. So I figured, all right, I know a lot about fantasy sports. I know a lot about what's out there in the market right now. I'd done the DraftKings and FanDuel. It's been in Indiana for obviously a long time. Not a huge gambler myself. And so I thought there's got to be something we can build that will allow someone who maybe doesn't want to gamble a whole bunch, but enjoys following along with their team or even other sports, that then drives people to businesses. It feels like everything is so focused on the consumer, but there's so many sports fans. There's obviously an overlap between people who watch sports and people who buy things at local businesses. How do I create something that engages that consumer and then pushes them to that local business so the business can benefit? And that's really where I landed on this concept. I'd say the second thing is I was really focused on free to play because I think there's so much going on in the betting space. It's really hard to break through. In free to play, there's not as much going on, and almost everything in free to play has been developed as almost like an on ramp to betting. So try this out for free, get used to it, and then maybe you want to take the next step. I didn't really want to do that. I thought there's got to be a way to build a free to play game that can stand on its own. The other free to play that's out there is it's free to play, but then there's all sorts of kind of ad clicks and pay per click in the experience, and so you're just trying to generate enough money in ad revenue to pay for the prizes, which results in 25,000 people playing for 72 cents. That sort of experience. And I realized, my background is all B2B SaaS. I figured the only way to get enough in a prize pool to make free to play sustainable was to find people who had money, who wanted those people who are playing to then buy stuff from them. And that's where the sort of the aggregate business model came in. I know for a fact businesses will obviously spend money to advertise to customers. If I can create essentially a credit or gift card pool out of that money, then now there's enough in the pool that it's there's an incentive for the user to keep playing. They want to keep playing, and they go out to the places that will still make money, even if they give them $5 or $10 to walk in the door.
Got it. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Got it. Any success stories that you can share? Examples of some of the businesses that have just loved using the Fans Place?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say a couple different here. So, from a local business perspective, we do a lot of work with the shop. They've got a location in Broad Ripple and Carmel, just opened one downtown. They do a lot of merch for Indy 500 and sort of a lot of local Indiana-based merchandise. Not a sports bar or restaurant, but I think very similar, local sports feel to it. And so we partner with them. They actually give away a free T-shirt every IndyCar contest we do, which is fun. And then, we do anywhere from $100 to a couple $100 a month and sending business back their way from users playing in the app, earning credit, and then going to the store, whether it's an online order or actually walking in. Union Jack across the street has also been very successful. They have more of a soccer crowd than anything. So our Premier League audience likes playing those contests. There's a little bit of an F1 vibe there as well. They do the early morning Saturday, brunches and stuff like that. And then on the other side, we've had a lot of success with sponsors. So I know you mentioned some of the radio promos we've done. We did that in connection with 1075 The Fan, and then Bud Light sponsored us through the entire Colts season this past season. And that was really cool because for them, they picked 20 local bars around Indianapolis that they wanted to sponsor. We actually did a sort of a combination where we had a street team that would go into the bars every few weeks for home games, let people know about the app, buy them samples of Bud Light product. And then, people would download the app. They would then get in. They would learn about the check-in incentives. They would earn their credits. And then they would keep coming back to that same bar over time because now they're incentivized to start playing and then keep playing.
Right.
So previous to that, if you think about sort of a sponsorship from an alcohol brand, you might get someone in the bar for 2 or 3 hours. You see them, maybe you have a drink, and then it's gone. It sort of disappears.
You can't track them.
Right. With our app, now we know who's in the app, who's playing. We can then get them to come back, even though Bud Light's not paying more, hourly dollars for employees to be there sponsoring stuff.
Right.
We can track what the sort of the long tail of interaction was on that. So we had, well over 2,000 participants over the Colts season across these 20 bars, and we've been able to track the dollar spent really since the football season because of the momentum we generated during the season.
Cool. That's great. Any other industries you think that are worth taking a run at? You started in restaurants and bars. You talked about kind of merchandise, the shop here locally. Anything else come to mind that you feel like is ripe for disruption?
I think when I think about users, roughly, this kind of makes sense when you think about it. 3 out of every 4 U.S. adults says that they like sports, and roughly 1 out of every 2 says they watch sports at least once a week. So again, kind of going back to the Venn diagram, I mean, 50% of U.S. adults represents roughly 50% of spending.
Yeah.
So I think when you have a sports fan, if we can get them in the app, pretty much anything you spend money on, you might be incentivized to spend more money in that category or to go to the people that are in our network. So I do think there's a lot of expansion opportunity outside of where we started with the local business. I think the easiest ones are ones that are super related to sports. So you think about golf courses, think about obviously local merchandise spots. But beyond that, one of the things we've thought about doing very recently is adding an actual online marketplace in the app as well. So allowing people to, go out, generate that foot traffic, but then also find kind of similar thing. Think about whether it's licensed apparel or whether it's, sort of an Etsy shop that's doing cool stuff, bringing those people into our app, allowing people to earn their credit, and then through sort of a marketplace in the app, redeem credit for dollars or percents off, an online marketplace of probably sports-related goods and memorabilia.
Okay.
I think that's something you'll see us get into here shortly.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I just think that, sports is often kind of that entry door.
Of course.
There's so many other opportunities.
Of course.
So many people interact in sports, but with sports. So that's a fabulous idea. Really cool to see the success of the Fans Place.
Yeah.
Can you let's switch gears a little bit here and just talk about entrepreneurship, your journey as a founder, kind of how all that started, and how did you take interest in kind of creating your own thing and, maybe not working for somebody else?
Sure. Man, how much time do you have?
Yeah.
So the shorter version, I moved to Indianapolis in 2012 when I graduated from Miami, Ohio. I got really lucky. For those of you listening, if you know Mike Fitzgerald, was early at Exact Target and has been at High Alpha now for a while. He went to Miami, Ohio, and actually did an interviewed me for a job here in Indianapolis 12 years ago.
Okay.
And honestly, in 45 minutes, pretty much sold me on startup life and Indianapolis as a city and why it made sense for someone like me. So one thing led to another. I got really lucky. I started at a company called Tinderbox, which became Octave, and then Conga right here on the circle. Was there for a couple of years, continued my B2B SaaS journey with Moby, which got acquired by Tango. Working for Scott Craigie.
Sure, yeah.
And those guys. And then I did a short stint trying to start a power generation business with a friend, and then was at 120 Water. And so honestly, the short answer is I got really lucky, just kind of followed a job that looked like it was going to be fun and interesting, got into Indianapolis, met a lot of really cool people along the way, and got really sucked into the B2B SaaS scene. And then I had the opportunity to watch some successful founders do it. And I think the entire time I was working in these places, in the back of my head, I was starting to think I'd love to take a shot myself, but I honestly thought I was always going to be the guy to have to partner with someone else who had the idea. And then I want to say probably 7 or 8 years ago, I started thinking, all right, I'm just going to, anytime I have an idea, no matter how silly it seems, I'm going to write it down in a note on my phone.
Yeah.
And so I have an actual notepad, and I think I got to 500 or something ideas over 2+ years. And I got them, I threw them on an Excel spreadsheet, and I went through them all, and this is not an exaggeration, 400 and probably 92 of them were absolute junk.
Yeah.
I mean, but you actually have to suspend your ego and think, it doesn't matter how silly I think this is gonna be later. It doesn't matter what it is. I just got to get in the habit of thinking of seeing solutions to everything.
Sure.
And the Fans Place wasn't actually on that list, but it kind of tricked my mind into seeing things in an entirely different way. And that's what led to me taking the leap and thinking, all right, I can create something here that people are going to want, that's going to provide value. And that's ultimately how it happened. But I almost feel like I rewired my brain into thinking a different way, and then waited for the right.
What'd you go to school for?
I was a math and economics double major.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That was not easy.
A lot of numbers.
Math and economics double major.
Yes.
Okay. So Exact Target. But I heard, math nerd. So I heard like 5 or 6 startups. It sounds like you kind of were a part of.
Yeah. I'd say 3, one that I tried sort of myself with a really good friend. And then 3 that I worked for really other people who did really well.
Right. And you got to learn kind of. Oh, yeah. Yeah. First row seat.
Absolutely.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. I learned a lot of things to do, and I made a lot of mistakes myself that I learned
Yeah.
not to redo later.
Yeah. So your list of 500 down to 492, how many of those 8 are still in play?
They're out there. Yeah. I mean, one of the hardest, it's funny you asked that, because once you start doing that, then one of the hardest things to do is actually to turn it off.
Yeah.
And I recognize that I have somewhat shiny object syndrome,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think both with just general ideas that are out there, and you got to stay focused, obviously, on your concept, and then also within your own business.
Yeah.
I think one of the hardest things to do as a founder is to really focus in on what matters. Every conversation you have with someone, you talk to a lot of really smart people who have a lot of really great ideas, and you want to, even with your own business, and you want to pursue all of them. I think it's really challenging to figure out, A, what's worth pursuing, and then B, how do I shove all the rest of this to the side and just do 1 or 2 things really, really well.
Right. Yeah. So I actually started that this last week. I started it.
Okay.
I had an idea. So I have one idea.
There you go.
A note. But for all those ideas you have that just like at the end of the day, they escape your head. So thank goodness for technology.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't have that and you can't record it in that moment, like,
Right.
we need this.
Right.
Society. So really
it'll
cool.
snowball it
you
will
just keep doing it.
absolutely snowball. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's always that one that's in the back of my head, like, oh, gotta figure out how to do that. But all right, let's talk about Techstars.
Sure.
You were part of the sports accelerator here in Indianapolis, class of 2022. And for those that are listening, Techstars really provides a great deal of resources around mentorship, especially around kind of either launching a product or a fundraise. So can you talk about your experience in Techstars and kind of what that meant for the journey for the Fans Place?
Yeah, of course. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate what Techstars honestly did for the Fans Place as a company. Jordan Flegel and Andrew Hippert run the program with help from Elliot Mack and a couple other folks. And when we got into Techstars, we were an idea with one beta customer, really. We were really, really early in our journey.
Okay.
And there's a little bit of a breadth of companies, or some are kind of Series A and some like us that are really, really early. And in the 90 days that we were in Techstars, those guys introduced us to, I want to say 60 or 70 different really talented, successful folks in the world of sports and sports tech. And for us, it was an opportunity to run our concept by a bunch of folks who have seen a heck of a lot more than we have.
Yep.
And kind of going back to the blinders on, you just collect a whole bunch of data points, and then you try to plot them, and you see where the trend line is amongst all these people. And I think, you obviously can't, some opinions are diametrically opposed, and you have to kind of figure that out. But when you source that much information, I think over such a short period of time, it really helps you figure out where the opportunity is. And then beyond that, you can then talk to those people well beyond Techstars, so the value, they'll tell you this, but the value of the network is immense.
Yeah.
For us, I hate to put it this way, but they kind of turned us into a real company too. I mean, it was sort of like we got into Techstars and we had a little bit of early success, but we needed to figure out how to operationally run a business and have a weekly cadence of KPIs and metrics, and how do we keep tracking towards goals, and working on our pitch and our story and all the things that work externally, but then at the same time, all the things that also work internally. I felt like we came out of Techstars with a real company and a vision and an idea of how to get to where we wanted to get to. And we kind of came into Techstars with a vision and a little bit of luck.
Yeah,
so
right.
I give them all the credit in the world for helping us get there. And then the last thing I'll say is, the other people you go through Techstars with, a lot of them are really good friends still. I still talk to most of them pretty regularly. It's just having someone you can call when you're going through stuff that I think only people who are also going through it either understand, or there are things you just can't tell anybody else because it's really tough and it doesn't look great when you're going through them. I just think the value of having those folks that you can call is really, really huge.
Yeah, you're alongside them in the trenches, going through the same program.
Absolutely.
I had a chance to see Demo Day a couple times, and Demo Day is really the culmination of all the learnings and all the mentorship and getting ready to kind of for that raise and that pitch. Now you're on stage in front of a couple hundred people and you're giving that pitch. A lot of those founders haven't done that, in that scale with a couple hundred people in the room. And so it becomes kind of like theater art. You got to really know your subject, but you also have to know how to deliver. And so I've got a whole new appreciation for the founders and what you went through standing on stage to give your demo, or maybe in the case of 2002 was a virtual.
We were actually in person.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so just describe that.
Yeah.
Like those couple of days leading up to it. Were you nervous?
So my story is weird because I got married the week before, or a couple weeks before that.
Great timing.
So I will tell. So I'm getting married overseas, and I had to. I'm not making this up. I got married on this Saturday night, and I told my wife, 48-hour period. I won't think about, look at, or do anything work wise from kind of Friday through Saturday night.
Okay.
And then Sunday, got through half the day. We had some time together, and then I actually pulled an all-nighter getting my pitch perfect on the Sunday night because we had to turn in a virtual version that would run immediately after the live version ended that needed to be the same as the live version so people could have the option.
Yeah.
And so we're 2 weeks before, that's the deadline. I'm literally in this hotel, finding a room, putting on a nice shirt, and finding this random conference room at 5 a.m. after working from whenever, 9 till 5 a.m. to do my 5-minute recorded pitch to go up virtually. It was something else. So for me, it was, then I, flew back, and then it was pretty great from there. But the cool thing I'd say is the day before we're all rehearsing, and we're getting used to the stage and everything. And I would say collectively, I think the group achieved a 9 or 9.5 out of 10 on demo day. I thought everybody was super impressive. And if you would watch the rehearsals, it was probably about a 6.
Really?
So, I mean,
just
you talk about people just rising to the occasion. There's some really impressive folks in that group.
Yeah, that's cool. And then to do it in front of your peers, I think is just as nerve-wracking. The people that are going through it. So kudos to you for going through that program. I know it's intensive, but I've heard that it's like a time warp. Take 2 years and condense it into like 9 to 12 weeks. And that's what Techstars does for you from a business standpoint. Tell me, I guess, can you talk a little bit more about like some of the rewarding moments for you in the business? Like, some of those checkpoints, you're like, we did it. We got to a point where, this is a viable thing. It's taken off. We're helping both the customer, an end user of the app, but also the establishments. We're helping them out. Like, were there any moments where you thought to yourself, like, we're winning?
Sure. It's definitely 100% customer and user feedback. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The number for me, I'd say almost more than anything, it's when I get users who will say things to me like, honestly thanking me for putting another option out there. That's not betting or gambling. I've had a number of users come up to me and say, thank you for trying to build something else. That is probably the most rewarding, I would say. And then, anytime folks are talking about you on social media and they're super stoked about winning, or, we got someone who told us, I'm doing my Christmas shopping this year courtely of the Fans Place because I earn credit and my kids are getting some cool merch.
Cool.
We had opportunities to send new fathers and their kids to some games, this year, courtesy of the partnership with Anheuser-Busch and some of the Bud Light stuff that they've done. So I'd say for me, it almost all comes back to our users just being super excited about winning in the app with that, again, that no risk. But then, some of the local businesses being able to say, look, we drove X amount of revenue, to this business over however many months. I think that's definitely rewarding. And then the work with Bud Light was a big moment for us, knowing that there's some big brands out there that are specifically looking for partners like ourselves who can create this really hyper local experience. Because when you think about these brands, they have a consumer marketing team that's doing this umbrella push at sort of the super high level. And then they all have very local marketing teams as well that are responsible for alcohol and beverage purchase in and around local venues. Yep. And it can be harder, to create an experience like ours at the local level. It's a little bit easier when you have a whole bunch of money at the national level. So there's an opportunity, I think, for disruption there. And the local team here has been really good to us. And so I think that was also one of those big moments where we thought we've really got something.
Yeah. That last point you made, sometimes I've seen maps where like there's brands in certain areas that are far outweigh brands in a different area, and that could be neighboring regions. And so, that's a tactical way to really be on the ground.
Absolutely.
And help those brands really push.
Yeah. And they get to help the local business owner as well. I mean, they get to go in and say, we are investing in something here locally that is driving traffic, back to your bar and restaurant. That's where we want to spend our money. And so I think it's a really good message all the way around.
Right. That's Rory Billing, CEO and founder of the Fans Place. Thank you so much for joining us and for explaining how the Fans Place has modernized customer relationship management for retailers. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Sports Tech HQ. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. And remember, stay tuned for our next episode where we'll be exploring another exciting innovation in the world of sports tech.